You step into the frozen expanse believing that your modern willpower is enough to conquer the absolute rawest element on Earth. You look around at the vast white void, wrapped comfortably in your high-end winter gear, confident in your basic survival instincts. But the Arctic does not recognize your confidence. It does not care about your past achievements or your internal resolve. From the second your boots hit the deep snow, a clinical clock begins to tick down against your evolutionary biology. It is a systematic process where your mind is stripped of its modern comforts and forced into a primal struggle where every single degree drop in temperature alters your psychology. This is the ultimate test of human endurance, where the line between survival and absolute defeat is drawn in the freezing dark. Welcome to the cold psychological matrix of the Arctic void. The countdown begins at the lowest level of physical strain, rank 1, the white void. You find yourself stranded on 2 feet of packed snow with nothing but what is currently on your back. Your modern reality instantly vanishes, replaced by a horizon where everything is white, cold, and profoundly silent. Your brain stem immediately identifies the existential threat. There are no streets, no shelters, and no structural protection. The initial shock is not painful. It is a creeping psychological isolation that forces you to realize how small and fragile your existence is when stripped of the corporate architecture you rely on every day. As the pale sun begins its rapid descent, you enter rank 2, the freezing clock. In this environment, time is your primary predator. Exposure to the open Arctic wind for mere minutes can freeze a human limb solid. You are forced into hard, repetitive labor, digging deep into the frozen crust to carve out a primitive snow fort. You are not building for comfort. You are racing against a biological deadline. If you do not construct a physical barrier to trap your body heat before darkness locks the landscape, exposure will claim your life before the next morning. Your muscles scream from caloric depletion, but the terrifying alternative forces your hands to keep moving. With the arrival of midnight, you pack tightly into rank 3, the sub-zero Sardines. You crawl into a tight, dark snow cave, compressed side by side with other bodies to share vital warmth. The air is freezing, and frost quickly blankets your sleeping gear. This is the level of acute claustrophobia. Your legs cannot fully extend, and your breath crystallizes on the icy ceiling just inches above your face. It is a miserable, exhausting experience that shatters any remaining romantic illusion of wilderness survival. You lie awake in the dark, shivering uncontrollably, listening to the howling wind outside, realizing that this is only the first night of a long, torturous cycle. Morning brings a cruel reminder of escape at rank 4, the evacuation temptation. Once a day, a rescue plane cuts through the cloud layer far above your head. You hold a bright red flare gun in your frozen hands, knowing that a single pull of the trigger can permanently end your suffering and return you to a warm modern room. The system actively tempts your psychological weakness. It invites you to surrender your pride in exchange for immediate physical comfort. To stay out in the dark requires a deliberate rejection of your natural survival instinct, forcing you to choose ongoing misery over a guaranteed path home. As you wander past the perimeter of your camp, you slip into rank 5, the phantom predators. You look down at the pristine white snow and notice massive animal footprints tracing paths through the nearby pine trees. You see moose tracks and the distinct patterns of predators, but the landscape remains completely empty to your eyes. This triggers a deep, ancestral paranoia. Your mind begins to believe that the environment itself is actively watching you from the shadows of the foggy, dense woods. The psychological weight of being perpetually monitored by an unseen force breaks your focus, draining your mental energy faster than the physical labor. Flesh begins to yield to the environment at rank 6, the Frostnip alert. You remove your gloves to handle gear, and within seconds, Your hands lose all sensory feeling. You look down at your bare feet and notice your toes have turned a pale, lifeless white, completely stripped of natural color. The threat of permanent frostbite becomes an immediate operational emergency. You're forced to use the primitive warmth of another human body just to restore blood flow to your extremities. This is the moment where survival ceases to be an abstract concept and becomes a terrifying reality of physical decay. Just as you gather your focus, nature strikes at rank 7, the wetwood crisis. A heavy blizzard rolls over your camp, completely burying your tools and soaking your stockpile of firewood under heavy wet snow. Without a central fire, your soaking wet clothes will freeze directly next to your skin, inducing immediate hypothermia. This is the level of pure desperation. You try to spark a flame over and over, failing as the cold numbs your fingers. You are forced to search for hidden dry tinder embedded deep inside old dead trees, protecting the tiny emerging spark with your literal life, knowing that if this fire fails, the challenge is permanently over. Looking for sustenance to fuel your failing body, you drop into rank 8, the 2-foot barrier. You trek over a frozen lake to find a river bend where the ice sheet might be thinner. You use a heavy iron auger tool, drilling deep into the white crust for hours, expending your final reserves of cognitive energy and physical calories. But the ice is unforgiving. Your tool sinks down past your forearm, hitting its maximum physical length, yet it never punctures through to running water. The ice is thicker than your technology. You are forced to turn back empty-handed, starving and freezing, feeling completely defeated by a landscape that refuses to yield a single resource. When all hope seems entirely lost, you reach rank 9, the Monologue miracle. You sit alone on the frozen lake, shivering in a whiteout storm, staring at a static fishing hook. Your mind spirals into past failures, and you realize that a lack of calories will break your body before the next sunrise. But instead of triggering the flare, your deep psychological stubbornness takes control. You refuse to let back-to-back challenges define your identity. You declare into the void that you will not fail again. And in that precise moment of absolute mental clarity, the line pulls tight. You plunge your bare hand into the freezing slush and pull a living resource out of the dark. The cycle of failure is broken. You return to camp victorious at rank 10, the sovereign survival. You watch the golden flames of the fire cook the resource you dragged out of the dark void, feeling a deep, quiet warmth restore your humanity. You realize that the Arctic was never an environment to be conquered by modern arrogance or complex gear. It is an architecture of natural law that can only be survived through absolute psychological surrender, brutal consistency, and the relentless refusal of the human mind to break under pressure. You began your journey looking for a simple physical challenge, and you finish it holding the key to absolute mental sovereignty. The frozen void is a perfect mirror for human psychology. It isolates your fears, amplifies your physical weaknesses, and systematically forces you to decide exactly who you are when all your modern safety nets are stripped away. And you? Which level of the cold psychological matrix do you think would break your mind first?